Hey everyone, and welcome. Ever wondered how millions, maybe billions of shares are traded every single second without, mountains of paper getting moved around? Well, you're about to find out. Today, we are cracking the depository system with a sharp focus on everything you need to know for your exams. Let's get right into it.
So here's what we're going to do. First, we'll get into what scriptless trading even is. Then, we'll meet the big four players in this whole system. After that, we'll tackle some super important definitions, the ones that always pop up on exams. We'll even learn how to decode a security's secret ID. Then we'll see how it all comes together in the real world, and we'll wrap it all up with a quick-fire review session. Sound good? Let's go?
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1. To really get this system, we got to go back to the beginning and understand the problem it was designed to solve. Why did we even need to go from paper to pixels?
Just try to imagine this for a second. A world where buying a stock meant you literally got a physical piece of paper. The old system was, it was a mess. We're talking about huge risks of theft, certificates getting torn up, or just plain lost. And the delays in transferring ownership? Just frustrating. It was a logistical nightmare. Seriously, something had to give.
And the thing that gave was the old system replaced by the depository system. This was brought in by the Depository Act of 1996. Now, the best way to get your head around this is to think of it like a bank, but for your stocks and bonds. Instead of depositing cash, you're depositing your securities. They're all held safe and sound in electronic form, what we call dematerialized form. And that, right there, is the heart of the whole scriptless trading system. No script, no paper, simple.
Okay, so for your exam, this is absolutely crucial. Why does this even matter? What are the benefits? Well, for us, the investors, this system is a total game changer. All those risks with physical paper, gone. Transfers, they happen instantly. And here's a big one. You don't pay stamp duty on electronic transfers, which is a nice little money saver. Plus, things like dividends or bonus shares, they just get credited to your account automatically. Trades settle way faster. Think about it. It went from taking weeks to just a couple of days. And on top of all that, banks are much happier to give you a loan against these electronic securities. It's a win-win-win.
Okay, so that's the why. Now, let's talk about the who. Moving on to Section 2. Because look, a system is only as good as the people and organizations running it. To really nail this topic, you have to know the four main players and exactly what they do. Let's stick with our banking system analogy, because it works perfectly here. At the very top, you've got the depository. This is like the main vault, the reserve bank of securities. In India, we have two big ones, NSDL and CDSL. But here's the thing. You, the investor, don't deal with them directly. Nope. You interact with what's called a depository participant, or a DP. Your DP is like your local bank branch or the ATM. It could be your bank, your stockbroker. They're your connection to the main depository. Then, of course, there's you. You're the beneficial owner, or BO. And last but not least, you have the issuer company. That's the company whose shares you actually own.
All right, time for some key terms. Pay close attention here because these are the buzzwords that love to show up in exams. Let's make sure we have them down cold.
First up is dematerialization, or as you probably know it, DMAT. This is ground zero, the first step. It's literally just the process of taking your old school paper share certificates and turning them into an electronic balance in your account. You hand over the paper, you get digital credit. That's it.
And this naturally leads us to a classic exam question. What's the difference between DMAT and REMAT? It's really simple. DMAT is going from physical to electronic. REMAT is the complete opposite. It's going from electronic back to a physical paper certificate. Honestly, it doesn't happen very often, but the option is there. So for the exam, just remember, DMAT, paper goes in. REMAT, paper comes out.
Okay, another really important idea is fungibility. Sounds complicated, but it's not. All it means is that in this electronic world, one share of a company is completely identical to any other share of that same company. They don't have unique numbers like the old paper certificates did. The best way to think about it is like a 100-rupee note. Yours is the same as mine. They're all interchangeable. And this very feature is what makes today's high-speed trading possible. Because every share is identical, the system can process millions of trades without having to track every single individual piece of paper.
So wait a minute. If all the shares are fungible and don't have unique numbers, how on earth do we tell them apart? Well, that brings us right into Section 4. Let's learn how to decode a security's digital ID.
So while individual shares of the same company are interchangeable, each type of security, like say their main equity shares versus a specific batch of bonds, gets its very own unique global ID. You can think of it like a digital fingerprint for that specific security.
And that fingerprint has a name. It's called the ISIN, which stands for International Securities Identification Number. It's a 12-character code, and it's recognized all over the world. Here in India, the power to assign these ISINs to companies is handled by NSDL.
So, what does one of these things actually look like? Well, here's a real one. Now, I know what you're thinking. Looks like a random bunch of letters and numbers, right? But trust me, there is nothing random about this. Every single character here tells you something very specific. Let's break this bad boy down. The first two letters, IN, super simple. That's the country code for India. Next, the E tells us the issuer is a company. The 002A, that's the unique ID for that specific company. The first 01 tells us these are equity shares. The next 01 is for this particular batch or issue of shares. And that last number, the 8, that's a check digit. It's just a clever little math trick to make sure the whole code is valid. See? It's a whole story packed into just 12 characters.
Okay, we've met the players, we've learned the lingo. Now, for Section 5. Let's put all these pieces together and see how the whole dematerialization process actually works in the real world, step by step.
So it all starts with you, the investor. You fill out a form, the DMAT request form, or DRF, and you hand it over to your DP along with your old paper certificates. What happens next? Well, your DP zaps that request electronically to the main depository. At the same time, they physically send your old certificates to the issuer company. The company then checks to make sure everything's legit and confirms it back to the depository. And once that confirmation comes through, boom! The depository credits the right number of securities directly into your electronic DMAT account. It's simple, it's secure, and it's all digital.
Whew, we have covered a ton of ground. Now it's time to make sure all that amazing knowledge is locked in. Let's do a quick, rapid-fire review. Ready? Let's see what you've got.
Okay, question 1. We know dematerialization is going from physical to electronic. So, what do you call it when you go the other way?
You got it. Rematerialization, or REMAT for short. That's getting your electronic holdings turned back into actual paper. All right, next up. This is a great little fact to keep in your back pocket for the exam. Who was the first and is still the largest depository in India?
That would be NSDL, the National Securities Depository Limited. And fun fact, it was set up in 1996, the very same year the Depository Act came into being.
And there you have it. The depository system is the engine that powers our modern stock market. From getting rid of all that messy paperwork to making trading happen in the blink of an eye, it's made everything safer, faster, and way more efficient. So after all that, let me ask you the final question. Are you ready to absolutely ace this chapter? You bet you are. Thanks for tuning in to this explainer.